Welcome to the Money Tales podcast. I'm Cammie Doder.
And I'm Sandy Brager.
You know, money lessons don't have to be complicated. They can start with a batch of cookies and a generous heart. In this episode, Tim Ranzetta, co-founder of the nonprofit Next Gen Personal Finance, shares how real-world money moments spark big lessons about earning, saving, giving, and growing financial confidence for life.
Here are 3 key money topics you'll hear in this conversation. First, kids learn what they live. Model open money talk and use real cash and daily teachable moments to engage them in learning about personal finance. Second, start early and save often. Small jobs, high saving habits, and compounding build security and choices over time. And third, build credit early and carefully. As Tim puts it, building good credit is like riding an escalator up, slow and steady, while mistakes send you down in a free fall. Now it's our pleasure to bring you Tim Ranzetta's Money Tales.
Welcome to Money Tales. Our guest today is Tim Ranzetta, and we are really excited to dive into a conversation with you, Tim.
Great to be here.
Thanks. Probably your background and what you're doing these days inspired something I was thinking about for today's conversation. My daughter, who is in elementary school, started a cookie business with a buddy of hers, actually 2 other girls. For sure, the first goal for the cookie business, where she sells her cookies at school, first goal was access to dough, which was meaning she could eat the dough as we were baking it and then eat more cookies. So I think that was goal number 1 for sure. But then money comes into play and they're all excited. They're making money. And so goal number 2 became they wanted, because you'd ask, what are you going to do with your proceeds? Well, we're going to buy a building. Why are you going to buy a building? The building was to make more cookies, which I think is funny, and also to turn it into this, almost like a tech company, nap pods and play areas and all this fun stuff.
Baking cookies does require naps in between.
That's right. Oh, especially from the underpaid, 0 salary worker that I am. Anyway, so of late, they've got a 3rd goal, and I really am excited about this new one. They've decided, organically, without my prompting or another mom's prompting, to donate some of the proceeds to cancer research, specifically breast cancer.
Cammie, how did they come up with that idea? That's so lovely.
Isn't that neat? It wasn't prompted, but for sure conversations, right, that you might be having at homes. It wasn't like, hey, what about a philanthropic angle? That was never asked, at least not from us. They just started talking about it, and I'm sure they hear of other businesses do that. Maybe we've talked about it in our home. And I liked how naturally kids connect money, meaning, joy. I think it's just incredible, and how they learn through handling money. I thought that was also just a really powerful part of watching this organically happen with these different goals.
That's awesome. It's great how they move from something this idea of building something big, a building, to giving back. That's one of the things you hear a lot of parents struggle with, is kind of this idea of how do we get our children to think about money in a productive way. And so I've heard about the, spend, save, share.
Yes.
And sometimes because we live in a digital world, having actual physical money can be really
Makes a difference, doesn't it? You can hold it.
It really does. And we also know that it's when you actually have to give something up versus tap to pay, it actually leads to probably more thoughtful decision making when it comes to money. So what a great example. And your daughter probably picked it up from a conversation you had at home, because people often say money is a taboo subject. How are young people supposed to learn? They have 2 eyes, they have 2 ears. They watch and they listen.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's something for all parents to understand. Whether you talk about money or not, you are giving your children habits and mindsets and ways to think about money, regardless of whether you ever explicitly sit down with them. So my children are older now. I have a 16-year-old and a 22-year-old. But I was one of these crazy dads who felt like you shouldn't have the money conversation. You should just be talking about money in its natural habitat. Like when I was taking money out of an ATM, they'd see me put my hands over the keyboard. Dad, why are you doing that? Like, well, Let's talk about fraud. Let's talk about identity theft.
Perfect.
Like, hey, why is this brand different than Kellogg's? This idea of generics versus, oh, guess what? That generic brand is running down the same manufacturing line as all of these things that happened. Just talk about it. I was blessed because I grew up in a family of 6. My father was a banker. He didn't have a college degree. He spent 42 years at Barclays Bank, from bank teller to vice president by the time he retired. Yeah, money was not a taboo subject. We would talk about money. I had a dog walking job. I was the 5th of 6 children. So I think I was 7 at the time, and our neighbor broke her hip. And I guess they probably looked at the dinner table one day and said, okay, it's you. You're going to go walk Mrs. Battison's dog. It was a big responsibility for a 7-year-old. It was 3 times a day.
Wow.
And it didn't matter. I grew up in New Jersey. It didn't matter what the weather was. You were going to take Dice out, because Dice was a Jack Russell Terrier with an incredible amount of energy. But every Friday, Mrs. Battison would give me a crisp $5 bill, and I'd go walk a third of a mile to the United Jersey Bank, and I was treated like royalty. This 7-year-old kid, we see him every Friday. We punch his passbook.
They made it really special. Isn't that incredible?
It took a long time for her to recover, which was bad for her, good for me. So I actually had that job for like a year. And so I literally had like $250. And my dad never told me, he was a smart man. He never told me you could take money out of a bank. It's in the safe and you're not getting.
You thought it was a one-way transaction.
It's great. You ran with this, which is really wonderful. Let's talk about learning about money from your dad. You have shown that you demonstrate through, that's how you bring learning to your kids. How did your family bring to life your money learning?
As I was saying, my dad would say, show me your passbook. Like, we'd literally bring our passbooks and he'd open it up and he'd have a big smile on his face. I was somebody who always had a job starting at the age of like 7. When it snowed out, that was an entrepreneurial opportunity. Grab a shovel, go, so I knew a lot of different ways to make money. But I had my first CD when I was like 12 years old. And people were like, what? Interest rates were like 12, 13, 14. I thought it was illegal. I thought my dad was letting me in on this game that nobody else knew, because I distinctly remember I had a 5-year CD where the money doubled in 5 years.
That's impressive.
No brainer.
Talk about building savings habits. And my dad had a great way about him, because we had 6 children. We were firmly in the middle class. And so I knew at a very young age, neither one of my parents had completed a 4-year college degree, but education was going to be paramount. And I had 4 siblings ahead of me, and I could see what they were doing. And it was clear very early on, if I wanted to go, you're going to have to work. And you're going to have to work and save. And so when people talk about, oh, you should save 20% of your salary, I probably saved 98% of what I earned, because I literally knew. I knew it was going to be a stretch to go to college. I think I had a legal pad where I was writing down my projections, and I think I had $20,000. And this is back in 1985. When I started college, I had $20,000, and then I knew, I needed to earn roughly $5,000 a summer. I was a golf caddy.
Tim, that was a lot of money in 1985. $20,000.
Yeah, and yet it didn't feel that way, because I knew we were right in that middle where it was like, my dad was like, we can go fill out the FAFSA, but there's no way I'm going to be able to make that family contribution, because there's 6 of you.
There's 6 of you.
And it was he and my mom both were very into fairness. So it wasn't like they were in a little bit of a different, a better place as kind of time went on, but it was like, it irritated me as a teenager, but that was the best gift I got from my parents, was a work ethic. Like, this idea that things that are really valuable, you're going to have to work for. And then from my mom, which I think clearly played out later in my life, was raising 6 kids for her was not enough. So she was the community volunteer. Like, she ran the Girl Scout troop. She did story hour for probably 40 years. She wrote the parish newsletter. She volunteered at Soup Kitchen. And it was just, she never talked about it. She never, ever was like, this is something you should really be doing. You should be giving. She led by example. And it was so I feel like I got the money skills from my dad, and I got it's really important, to whom much has been given, much is expected. And they never said it. They just led by the way they lived their lives.
I love the power of all of this modeling. And I'm wondering, when you did go to college and you were working toward your ultimate career ambitions, how are you thinking about money at that point, Tim? Because you're in school. Sounds like you financed it all yourself.
About three quarters. Yeah.
Okay. So three-quarters of it. And then you're looking beyond that. How are you thinking about money as a young adult?
I wanted to make a lot of it. I guess that's,
And
Why?
why?
Yeah, we got to know why.
I think there were things I wanted as a kid that I didn't get. And they weren't huge things. Like, I wanted a basketball court in our driveway. And so I scrounged up a basketball. Somebody had a basketball rim, but we had to get the cement and the pole, and we couldn't do it. And my parents did the best they could. I mean, this is not a question of like, when you walked in, again, another great modeling, you'd walk into my parents' closet and you'd be like, where are all the clothes? Like, they never, my dad had a pair of tennis shoes that were like 40 years old with paint splattered all over. And I'd be like, Dad, you're embarrassing me. Don't. And so I think it was, I don't think I had a firm plan on what I wanted. I wanted security. I wanted, it wasn't the big car. I mean, my job, high school through college, was at a country club. And so a lot of well-to-do people. I'd see them drive up in their Ferraris, and that wasn't like, oh, that's what I want. So I wanted options. I wanted choices. I wanted peace of mind. I think I graduated with $200 in my checking account. And I went back through my passbook, and I was not a model manager of my bank account. A lot of $5 overdraft. They were only $5 at the time. I was living on the edge. So I think it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It was like security. I wanted to be able to take a deep breath and say, it's going to be okay. So I think that's what it was.
It's so important to you.
It makes sense.
And then all of a sudden, I get this job, and I worked in a consulting firm. And they kind of, when they're trying to sell you on why you should join the firm, they'd say, okay, here's what you're going to make in year 1, year 2, and then year 3. And I looked at year 3 and I was like, and it wasn't that much, but I think my frame of reference was like, wow, this is incredible.
And so, Tim, did you choose that job for the financial benefits?
No, absolutely not. It was a consulting job. And I just knew the other jobs I had were more narrow. And this was kind of my dream job that I thought I would never get. And then the money was just extra. I think from a prestige, from a learning, the culture of this firm was really strong. I knew I was going to learn a ton and work with a lot of really smart people. And the money was it was icing on the cake. And I was no stranger to a work ethic. And so I knew that, okay, there's something that comes with that compensation, which is you're going to work really hard.
So as you started making money and sort of getting that security that you so desired, how did that impact your relationship with money, or did it?
Again, because I'd been trained on saving, I would just save as much as I could. And that was really the beginning, because I had liquidity issues, right? I needed to take the money I earned in the summer and immediately pay for college. I wasn't thinking long-term about investing. And so that really got me excited. And one of my earliest lessons was an incredibly valuable one: the dangers of investing in individual stocks. So I took half my first paycheck.
Oh, say more about this. It's an important lesson.
Took half my first paycheck to a brokerage office. My roommate had a hot tip. This was going to be a great company. It was automating checkout lines at supermarkets. Makes a ton of sense. Even in 1989, it made a ton of sense. There were news reports that the big contracts were about to come through. So yeah, I took half my pay. I think the stock was trading about $7 a share, and 6 months later, it was trading at $2 a share.
Oh.
And I sold it, and I learned a really important lesson. Now, obviously, you can't go to a grocery store, the Home Depot now, without a checkout line. I was just about 2 decades too early. That's all.
Timing's everything.
Yeah. Then it was like mutual funds. That was kind of the world that I went into. And, the early returns of the market when you first start investing have a tremendous impact on how you think about it. So I started investing in 1989. And so for that first decade, until 1989, 1999, probably one of the best decades for investing. 13, 14%, I think, were the annualized returns, right? And then obviously what happened the next 2 years was the big internet bust. But that idea that the stock market can create wealth because of that first decade, incredibly powerful. So when things go down, it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of the market goes up and down. But I think that really has a tremendous impact on how people think about the stock market and its ability to generate wealth.
So you're learning that not only can you save money, you can invest it and it will grow while you're otherwise making more money. How were you thinking about or learning about other aspects of investing, such as retirement accounts or investing outside of retirement accounts? Because when you become a young professional, and especially given your background, you knew a lot about money based on what your father was teaching you and what both of your parents were modeling for you. But now you're in a whole new league as a young professional, investing, learning, individual stocks might not be the way to go. But how are you filling in your personal financial education at that time, Tim?
I had a newspaper route when I was young, so I was always reading newspapers. It was the local paper when I was growing up, the Bergen Record, and then it became the Wall Street Journal when I was a professional. And I was very fortunate to find that column that a writer named Jonathan Clements wrote, who recently passed away. Just a phenomenal...
It's a great writer.
It turned out his career at the Journal closely paralleled my career starting out. And so I just read everything I could about him. And he was early about the power of index funds and a ton of other things. How do you raise your kids? His column became just the must read. And so I would read that. I read, I think I early on caught the Vanguard bug. Probably read a couple of John Bogle's books about mutual funds, realizing, because again, it's through life experience. I remember investing in actively managed funds that were on the cover of magazines and then suffering the next 5 years. I mean, it's really difficult for anyone, professionals as well as retail investors, to beat the market. And so I just read as much as I possibly could. And then you learn from the mistakes you make also. Unfortunately, I think the more mistakes you can make early on and not let that dissuade you that, okay, investing is good, but maybe my approach to investing isn't. Learning those lessons early on, I think, were really, really important.
Tim, will you share a couple beyond what you've already shared? What's a couple other lessons you've learned as a result, either of success or a mistake, that you think is important to share with our listeners?
I'll take kind of children first and then adults. I think one of the most popular games played in high schools is the stock market game, which can get young people very excited about individual stocks. But it also, and I say this because I've heard this from teachers, it can really knock people's confidence down, right? Because they do the research and the game is too short in duration, right? It might be 10 weeks, might be 12, might be 16. If the goal is to win over that short period of time, that's not necessarily the same skills that you want to see investors use.
Taking a lot of risk.
Yeah, you need a lot of time.
I mean, in fact, if you Google, I have to say, if you chat GPT now, if you Google how to win the stock market game, it has no relationship. It's like high beta stocks just before earnings results. You're looking for the big pops. I worry if it's not taught in a certain way that students walk away believing, oh, I was number 26 in our class and I did all this work, so I must not be an investor. And I think by getting young people to think, oh, the only way you invest is to invest in individual stocks. Because if you look at the Reddit boards, if you look at YouTube, they're all touting day trading. I mean, all these get-rich-quick schemes. But I do think there's value if you're working with your child, wanting to teach them investing, let them pick a couple companies to invest in, but also invest in an index fund. And so that they see there's different ways to invest and understand that, the chart for individual stocks might be like
time
this,
frames,
but the volatility, which is a big word. I mean, the amount of price going up and down is going to be a lot less for an index, because you can't get kids interested in investing by talking about indexes. It's like, it's a hard concept for them to grasp, but hey, what brands? Nike, Chipotle, think of the thing, just so they understand a stock is a company. Because we often treat stocks as abstractions. No, you own a piece of a company.
That is part of the economy.
Exactly. And I love index funds. I love Warren Buffett's description of index funds, which is basically you own a piece of the economy. You go from owning a piece of a company, because the 500 largest companies are like 70, 80% of the overall stock market. And there's a great visualization that we use when we work with students called FinViz. And it's basically, it's a market map, because it's hard to envision what is the S&P 500. Well, this visualization actually shows you what it is with the size of each of the individual companies based on their market cap.
Tim, this makes me wonder, how did you decide to turn your life's focus toward financial education for young people and co-found the Next Gen Personal Finance establishment?
Yeah. So again, the household I grew up in, I'm one of the fortunate few that had these lessons. And you assume growing up, your worldview is pretty narrow. Like, oh, everybody must be getting this. They're clearly not. And so I volunteered 14 years ago to teach at a high school in East Palo Alto called Eastside College Prep. Just an amazing independent school. 100% of the students are on scholarship. They share one thing in common. They all want to be the first in their family to go to college. So I visited the campus, inspired by their work, said, how could I help? They said, well, how about starting a personal finance program? And so at the time, I was a stay-at-home dad. I was trying to figure out how to plug in and make a difference when it came to education. And so I volunteered to teach, and that changed my life, because what happened in the classroom was seeing how eager young people were for this information, how little they knew, but how much they wanted to know. And then the icing on the cake was getting emails from parents. And I realized there's a real ripple effect to this course. So we just recently, I met with one of my early students, and I think he's probably the one that inspires me to do this work more than anyone else, because David was a freshman at the time. First class was about investing. Anybody who's ever been in a classroom, you know the look that you get from a student who's totally locked in. David goes home, tells his father about investing for retirement, and I work with his dad, and we set up an IRA for him. So he's really excited. But okay, that was like 10 years ago. So David goes off to college. He studies business. He runs the investment club at UC Santa Barbara, where he went to school. And David flew back for this meeting we had. We screened a documentary that we put together, and David works on Wall Street now. There are a ton of Davids out there, because Next Gen Personal Finance, we have over 130,000 teachers in our network. And we hear almost daily from them about the impact that their course is having on young people. So that experience teaching, it inspired me to say, why isn't every kid in America getting a personal finance course?
Why aren't they? Like, why?
Yeah. So the good news is the world has changed. So we started Next Gen Personal Finance 11 years ago. And so what we do is provide teachers with, everything's free because we're a nonprofit. We have grant funding. I've provided significant resources also. And we provide curriculum. We train teachers. We do advocacy work, and we help districts as they implement these new courses. But the momentum behind this movement is incredible. So just in the last 5 years, the number of states that require, so this is states saying, hey, high schools, you must teach a course in personal finance. It's gone from 8 states to 30. And so when all of those states fully implement, it'll be 76%. We'll be able to say 3/4 of American high school students are going to benefit from taking a personal finance course. And I will say that I think the most important factor there is the second thing I mentioned, which is teacher professional development. The reason this hasn't been taught is there aren't a lot of financial experts in high school hallways, high school classrooms. The best part of the work that we do and that I love is working with teachers. We've trained 20,000 teachers. On average, they've spent almost 30 hours with us. And the great thing is they walk away from that saying, not only are you giving me lesson ideas to bring to my students, this has changed my life.
That's what I was just thinking.
I'm a lot more confident. So this is like the best job in America, because
I believe it.
The energy the students bring and the gratitude that teachers show, like this is a different course for them.
It's so powerful. We talk a lot on Money Tales, this lack of education, and it's so wonderful to see the work you and others are doing. It's hard, these concepts sometimes, unless you're selling the cookies, and it's hard to really grasp the ideas. And it seems from my reading of NGPF, what you all are doing is bringing it to life. Some things that are esoteric, they aren't buying a home and have a mortgage, so it's sometimes hard to understand. Even compounding. Will you share, how do you make it relevant to the students so that they really, it's sticky?
Yeah, you're exactly right, because this is not a lecture-based class. It cannot be. It has to be hands-on. It has to be students learn by doing. And so just take one example. We have a lesson on mutual funds. And how are we going to bring this abstract concept of diversification and index funds? Well, we do it by creating what's called a move activity. Every student gets a card that has a stock listed on it. And then we ask them to and it has a stock market return on the card. We ask them to pair up with somebody else, and they discover, when you bring two companies together, you get the average of the returns. Then we have them create create pockets of 6. And then we bring all 30 of them together and we say, what are you? And it's the Dow Jones Index. And it's like, this is all an index fund is. It's a collection of companies. And they've done a little bit of math in the process. We create games. I think that's the other way that young people love to learn. So imagine a game. Actually, our latest game, we have 11 games in our arcade. They get played like 15 million times a year. I mean, they're really popular. Shady Sam, Slick Wheels. The student plays card dealer. And so you've got a customer in front of you and you have 3 choices on what to pitch them on. So the idea of the dealer creating urgency. Buy now, this deal goes away at the end of the month. Like, they learn all the tricks of the trade so that when they step into the situation of buying a car or another, it just gets them thinking that the person sitting across from you, they may have different incentives in terms of how they're dealing with you. So, but the issue of relevance is really important too, right? Like, we have to be dealing with things that students are dealing with now. Like, we have a bank simulation. That's one of the most popular applications on our site, where students need to understand how to run an online bank account. Like, if you're still teaching how to write checks, you're a generation behind. You have to show them, here's the interface of how do you bank online, because many of them, that's the first time they're going to do it. You have to teach them how to pay for college. We know in California, the ratio of college counselors or students to college counselors is like 800 to 1. This course is a place where students can understand how to fill out a FAFSA, the various forms of financial aid that are available. That's really important. Psychology, our first unit is psychology.
Ooh, that's great.
The first word in personal finance is personal. You were raised differently.
Yes.
Sandy was raised differently. And we have to talk about, what are the money mindsets that are out there? Oh, the stock market's a ripoff. Well, okay, let's talk about where that might come from. Somebody had a bad experience. Okay, does that mean we should continue that theme? And so you have to in many classes in America too, there's a wide disparity of socioeconomic status. And so getting teachers to understand everybody in front of them has a different set of money tales, right? Money story.
Yeah.
And I think teachers feel like they have a lot more credibility when they can create that safe place for students to talk about things like that.
I love that, because you're meeting the students where they are and you're really engaging them in money, which I think is so key to really allowing personal financial concepts to land.
Yeah.
You could talk to someone all day long about how a mortgage works, but if there's someone that doesn't like debt and has been taught that debt is bad, you're just wasting your time.
And I think a really important subject, we did some research because we wanted to quantify what's the value of a personal finance course. And if you look at all the research that says how finance education can help people who take a course, credit is among the biggest. And credit scores specifically, because the mistakes you make early on can dog you for a very long time. The analogy I use is like a credit score is an escalator on the way up, right? Really slow, but you keep doing the right things, don't overborrow and make on-time payments. You keep going out. You make a mistake, it's a fast elevator down.
Yeah.
And so we've created some great activities there. You might say, well, what is credit scores? How can they be relevant to a high schooler? Well, they turn age 18, they may want to rent an apartment if they go to college. Or if they don't go to college, they may need to rent an apartment. They'll quickly realize, oh, this is why it's...
And the credit card companies get to know them fast.
Yeah. And so this idea, the lesson we have there is like, it blows young people's minds. Like, here's 2 different people, two different profiles, two different credit scores, buying the same product, a car, and it's thousands of dollars. The same car costs a different amount. The sticker price is still the same, right? Or whatever the price you ultimately land on, but with interest payments over time, it's multiple thousands of dollars. And I think that blows their mind. And then also just making it clear you don't have to be rich to have a good credit score. Just takes responsible.
Well, that's so important.
Tim, I think the work that you and NGPF are doing is completely priceless. Like literally, it just
It's like a MasterCard commercial.
as a personal finance professional, I'm just so excited that you guys are out there doing this and that you've been so successful. Please tell us, what's your next money conversation going to be and who's it going to be with?
It's going to be with my son, actually, because we went over this yesterday and we didn't finish the lesson. It was the pandemic. It was 2020. He was 11 then. And I was like, I got to get him interested in investing. And so I let him make some choices on individual stocks to purchase, as well as the S&P 500. And so we don't do it frequently enough. We probably do it every year. We go and look to see how he's done. And so he's done like 2020. I think it was September of 2020 is when he made.
I was hoping you were going to say April.
Yeah, April. But even
September's still good.
September's still, I think the market's doubled since then. But anyway, it's been really, so now I want to go through, I think there are 5 companies, he loved Roblox at the time. And, and that was that was in the middle of the pandemic. Roblox was flying high. What's interesting is because we didn't look at this that frequently, like he missed the fact that it lost probably 2/3 or maybe 3/4 of its value and then popped back up to where he now has a gain. So I think I want to I want to spend more time going through each of those individual companies and figure out, okay, why are they doing well or not so well? I wanted him to be interested in companies he dealt with in his life. So Nike was another one. And I think Nike's down 30% since that time. So I think we did the spreadsheet and he was blown away. I'm surprised, actually. He's 16 years old. I'm surprised he hasn't dealt with spreadsheets. But the idea of putting formulas in and being able to add and subtract and do division and create percents is like a wow moment. So I think that'll be our next conversation.
It's such an important conversation. And I kind of appreciate that you're not doing it too frequently because then it turns on that short-term mentality. But anyway, I'm sure there's a balancing act. Tim, this has been incredible. Would you share where's the best place for people to find you?
Sure. It's our website is www.ngpf.org. Again, our mission is by the year 2030, every high school student in America will take a personal finance course. If you're in a state, there are 20 states that don't currently require a personal finance course. You could be that advocate that makes a difference because we've seen it time and time again. It takes a small group of committed people to create change. So that's the best place to go. Our website is free, everything we do there. And so as a parent, you can also pull down some of the activities, play some of the games with your young people. If you have somebody in high school, my favorite game is Payback because it teaches young people how to get to and through college, all the decisions you're about to make, not just the money decisions either, but other important decisions. And I think that's a really good one for parents to play actually with their children.
Tim, that's incredible. I've written a lot of notes personally, things that I'm going to look into. You're on an important mission. We support you. We hopefully are impacting that in people having money conversations. And it's been a pleasure to do so with you today on Money Tales.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Cami, for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the Money Tales podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you think would benefit from listening. And leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Your ratings and reviews help more people find our podcast. If you're inspired to gain clarity and peace of mind about financial matters, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at Aspiriant. Go to aspiriant.com/start a dialogue. Or you can email Sandy and me at podcasts@aspiriant.com. See you next time.